Regulation of the financial markets is something which is constantly evolving, and I'm joined by Pierre Maliczak from Altaris Group, based here in Geneva. So thank you for joining me, Pierre.
You're welcome.
Let's start by talking about the Aifm Directive from the European Union. Not a very exciting sounding piece of legislation, but important nonetheless. How is that going to affect fund managers here in Switzerland?
Well, regulation has been something that has been increasing during the last 2 or 3 years because of 2008, because of the Madoff case. And the European Union is definitely has been taking some very strict directions in order to improve that regulation. And that applies obviously to Europe, but that is something that is very important for investors in order to be more protected and to feel that if anything goes wrong, people that are involved in the process will be penalized, or let's say they are liable. And that will apply, for example, for the Aifm directive to the custodian banks. So in one side, if you are surrounded as a Swiss investor by European managers that are much more regulated, it will have a definite impact on you, because investors will be more reluctant to invest into your fund because of the lack of regulation.
Let's give our viewers a bit of history about regulation here in Switzerland, because you mentioned the Bernie Madoff case.
Yes.
And of course there was the fallout after the collapse of Lehman Brothers.
Yes.
So why is there the need for more regulation within Switzerland?
For any fund managers based in Switzerland not managing a Swiss fund, the regulation is pretty weak. And such a person or such a structure doesn't need to be regulated. So for example, if from Geneva you are managing a fund that is based offshore, you have very little to do in order to be able to run that fund. And that is definitely something that is becoming an issue for the Swiss regulators, and I understand and I believe as well it's because they are getting quite a lot of pressure as well from outside Switzerland in order to get a much higher level of quality, standards and resources in order to maintain a kind of a good high rating in terms of management.
FINMA regulate the financial markets here in Switzerland.
Yes.
I understand there's going to be some pretty major changes in the second quarter of this year.
Exactly. It is expected to have a modification of the LPCC, and that is definitely a law that regulates investments, and requiring, which is absolutely new and quite a drastic change, anybody or any structure managing a fund out of Switzerland to be regulated. And that will have a major impact on those performing such a role at the moment, because the level of requirements in terms of capital, in terms of resources, in terms of operational setup, the impact is going to be quite substantial. And because of the model that has been used for many years in Switzerland, we can unfortunately say that quite a non-negligible number of those asset managers will face quite difficulties to cope with those requirements.
Isn't there a danger that all these new regulations are going to damage the financial sector in Switzerland? Because obviously we know that the financial sector in Switzerland is so important to the whole overall economy.
Well, it started with the banking secrecy. We started with, unfortunately, quite a few things lately. And, but here I don't think you can play with regulation. At the end of the day, we are talking about transparency, we are talking about reporting, we are talking about definitely ensuring at least a minimum that the money you put into an investment, you can of course make or lose money on performances, but you should be safe on the process itself, and that the money is not going to evaporate like that. That's number one. And I think the second thing as well is that because big service providers are being most of the time involved and hired to service those funds, and I do believe as well that there is a liability that needs to be taken care into account, and that if anything goes wrong, people cannot just say, "Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see it." And that is something that is, I think, is very positive, because at the moment, talking about Switzerland or any places in the world, the level of cash is the highest you can find, and you ever seen for many, many decades. And that's mainly because of uncertainties in terms of the financial, the economical and financial environment, but as well because of, I think, what happened, and that of the risk that some people did not realizing what they were taking, and seeing that the money just evaporated. So if the regulation steps in, and if you can tell the investor, okay, if anything goes wrong, someone is going to be liable for it, and that's another subject, because in order to do that, you need to make sure that the money where the bank that is taking care of the custody has enough balance sheet to support that, then I think it will be a very good way to make people much relax about investing again.
Let's move on to a different country, Malta. It's not a country we talk about a lot here on Dukascopy TV, but I understand your company has a presence in Malta. And I was reading that the number of funds in Malta has grown from 165 in 2006 to more than 500 now. Are these new regulations part of the reason that companies are looking for Malta?
Very much so, very much so. First of all, Malta is part of Europe, for those who do not know, and it has become the third biggest jurisdiction in Europe. Even it's miles away, of course, from Luxembourg or Dublin. But Malta definitely becomes start attracting quite a lot of interest, and a lot of fund managers are looking at Malta to create their own asset management company, and as well to create funds. One has to keep in mind as well that obviously because of the passporting rule, if a fund is based is registered in Malta or in Luxembourg or is as good as anywhere else. So that's the first statement that is very important. And the second thing is that why Malta is attracting more and more demand and attention is mainly because more than ever now everybody is cost sensitive, and Malta is definitely considered as a very cost-efficient place to start a fund. The second thing as well, and some other jurisdictions are paying the price of being successful, the delay to put a fund in the market is very short compared to other jurisdictions. And lastly, but it's a place as well that took the English law as a base, and so it talks to a lot of people. So definitely, I know that in 2011, the first quarter of 2011. The number of funds that have been registered was the same as the whole year of 2010, and it's keep on growing. I think that yesterday an article was put in Bloomberg as well, so everybody's talking about it. Doesn't mean that a lot of business is being created yet, but definitely there is a lot of traction, and the proof of it is to see the big service providers now being in Malta as well.
Okay, thank you, Pierre. Pierre Maliczak joining me there from Alterius Group. Stay tuned for more interviews and analysis here on Dukascopy TV, but for now, goodbye.